Microphone check. Check 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. The Coffee and Biscotti Show. I'm your host, Coach Mel Bellissimo. Today is Friday, March 11th, 2022. The time is just past 12 o'clock EST. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're doing amazing as I'm doing, because I am super stoked for today's show. It's been a good week. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you've had a wonderful week. Energy's been interesting this week. There was a couple of nights that, I don't know, little guy got a fever. And he was at home. He's been at home for daycare. So I want to give a special shout out to Nona Bellissimo, who's upstairs, and my dear friend Albert Wong, who's supporting me today by looking after the little guy while we can go live on the Coffee and Biscotti Show. I know there's still lots happening in the world, but I think it's important to note that we need to shine our light. We need to show our sunshine and let the rays come out. And I use that today because we have a special guest today who's the embodiment of what it means to be sunshine. My friends, I have a great show for you today. Today's show is brought to you by Team Wolfpack, a heart-centered group of business leaders who come together 3 times a week to train Muay Thai, Tuesday, Thursdays at 6:30 a.m., and Sunday in real-life Muay Thai training at the very famous Gracie Barra East here in Orleans, Ottawa, Canada. And what a pleasure it is to hang out with such a group of amazing men who have seen some success in business, but really understand the value of giving back. And just to show you, Albert Wong, who's part of our wolf pack, is upstairs watching my little guy with Nona, and just so that I could do the show. I mean, my friends, what other proof do you need to know that this organization of Team Wolfpack is a truly light-filled organization? So if you know any men that are interested in becoming part of a group of like-minded individuals who really care about life, you send them to Team Wolfpack, my friends. Big up to Josh Leslie and Poutine Nation in the house, back from the Azores. Josh, always a pleasure to see you and have you here. You are an amazing human. And as I say every week, my friends, go out and get your friends. Go out and get yourself a friend like Josh Leslie, because he is number one in my books, my friends. I want to give a special shout out to another beautiful goddess in the house today, Franny. Sending you love and kisses. Thank you so much for being here. Wow, I just feel so excited. I'm coming off that high of interviewing Kent Nurburn last week, and just feeling this energy of like things are moving, things are shifting. We've had so much to be introspective about as we come out of this pandemic, and now here we are, and we're starting to see the restraints sort of lift as here in Ontario, COVID passports are no longer needed. Today I heard March 21st, all the masks can come off. And so we're starting to break free. So I hope that you've spent some time over the last couple of years being introspective. Again, one of the greatest memes that I saw was, this is Mother Earth sending us to our room for how poorly we're treating the planet and each other. And it's a perfect segue into today's show, because, my friends, I've been very fortunate in my life to meet a lot of great people. The universe has blessed me with being put in front of people that, from all walks of life, from all races, cultures, and creeds. And I've been very blessed to meet all these kind, warm-hearted people. I'm friends with the saint and I'm friends with the scoundrel, and I connect with each and every one of them. An old Thai boxing teacher used to say to me, Mel, what I like about you is you find beauty in everyone. Well, today, my friends, my guess, you don't have to look far to see the beauty. I'm running a 9-week mastermind, a vision board mastermind, where 6 people come together for 2 hours every week to bring some clarity to their life by presenting a piece of what I call the pizza pie, a slice of the pizza pie of your life. 8 compartments of your life. Each week we discuss one of these compartments and you share your vision board and your clarity with what it is that what we call your desired end state, or your desired state of what it is that you want from that particular compartment of your life. And I had the pleasure of meeting my next guest. And I'm going to tell you something. I didn't know where to go with this because she's young. She's a young woman. And I put this in the post. She's a young woman, but an old soul. So I ask you to think about how, have you ever met someone that when you shook their hand or when you spoke with them, you knew they were young in age, but you knew that their soul had some experience, their spirit lineage came from something that was so deep, so rich, so powerful. She's a young woman. And I said to her before the show started, you know, young lady, I don't even know if you know how powerful your energy really is. This woman is a powerhouse. And I mean, there's so much going through my head right now. She's a powerhouse energetically. She's been called, the sunshine in human form. I want you to think about that. I mean, if any of you have watched the UFC, you've got lots of crazy nicknames. Diego, the Nightmare Sanchez, who of course went to change it because he wanted more positivity in his life. But all of these crazy nicknames, well, this woman's got the nickname Sunshine in human form. A real life Disney princess. It really is. I don't know. I don't know how can I express to you of how completely impressed I am with this young woman. And I love that it fell on the week where we celebrated International Women's Day. And it's almost like the universe. This came to be because the universe put all the pieces together. My guest is operates a spiritually centered business called Live Illuminated, and she really is so many things. She's a singer, an actor, an incredible storyteller, a writer, a medium, a psychic, an intuitive, a lover. Lucky guy. Yes, gentlemen, I'm sorry, she's taken. A friend, a confidant, and one of the things that I love the most, an exceptional hugger. One day I hope to experience that because my dear friend Josh said on our show that when Crew Mel gives you a hug, you feel it. And that my heart has its own gravitational pull, while this woman has the exact same thing. And I feel that that's why I'm so connected to this incredible young woman. But I heard this line a couple weeks ago. And the line was, the struggle is the reward. I want you to think about that for a moment. The struggle is the reward. Well, my friends, my guest today is not short of those, is not short of struggles. She spoke about growing up a young girl in elementary school and transitioning to high school with not being the first choice amongst her peers. She talks about how she was not surrounded by a lot of friends. In fact, she would tell you that her number one friend was her mom. She she has a lot of medical challenges. She watched her mother go through medical challenges and then years later started her journey of dealing with her own medical challenges. And so the idea of the journey or the struggle being the reward is true. Because I don't think this woman would be the person she is today if she hadn't gone through these trials and tribulations. I think that what I hope that all of you in the audience gain today from today's show is that when you close your eyes for a moment and you hear her voice, that you listen and you allow the words to go through the ear canal, down the esophagus, into the heart, as you feel this woman's energy. I am very honored that I get to call this woman my friend. And I hope that as time goes on, we will be doing some work together because this is a woman I want on my team. So, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world, get off of your comfortable seat and put your hands together for the very sexy Lexi Fontaine.
Oh, man, I just sat here and like let those words really sink in. Thank you so much, Mel. I am so grateful for you, and I'm like still in shock that I get to do this show with you today. Thank you so much.
Well, my dear, are an inspiration to so many, and I'm just so excited. I'm so excited because I said to you when I invited you to be a guest on the show, sexy Lexi in the house, indeed, Poutine Nation. I said that your story needs to be heard, and it needs to be heard because of two words: perseverance and resilience. I want people to feel that. Because in the world of martial arts, we say, you got that famous Rocky Balboa speech. It's not how hard you can get hit, it's how many times you can pick yourself up and continue to move forward. And you, my dear, are the embodiment of you constantly moving forward through whatever changes or challenges, rather, that you have been through in your life. And that story needs to be heard. So thank you for taking 90 minutes to be with us today, Lexi.
I am honored and humbled to be here. Thank you.
So, as we do in every show, Lexi, we with the help of Josh Leslie, Poutine Nation, we decided that we needed a space in which we could share people's stories of passions and transformations. And so, what I would like to do, Lexi, is I would like to turn the mic over to you, and ask you to paint us a picture of who sunshine in human form really is.
So, I believe that I am the embodiment of the quote that the kindest people you'll ever meet are the people that the world has not been kind to. Um,
Let's write that one down. Can you say that one more time, please?
yes. So I believe I'm the embodiment of the quote that the kindest people you will ever meet are the people that the world has not been kind to. Um, I say that, as somebody who knows that I have a lot of privilege living in the Western world and being a white woman. Like, I have a lot of privilege to be able to say that. Um, But for me, I have faced so many physical challenges with my medical issues and my health since childhood, really, that my entire adolescent and adult life thus far has been a test of adversity. It has been an uphill battle to continue to figure out who I am, um, even when nothing is going the way that I want it to. My husband likes to say that, and he's the only one that can say this to me because otherwise it would kind of hurt. But he likes to say that he wonders sometimes if the reason that part of my path in this lifetime was to become chronically ill was because the universe knew that was the only way they could get me to slow down. Um, because I was always the person, even as a teenager. I got my MS diagnosis when I was in high school. That didn't stop me. I kept my schedule overfilled at all times. I was doing every extracurricular ever, and loving it, but my body was just breaking down on me. And so I've tried really hard to look at the struggles I've been through and the limitations that I do have physically right now, as an opportunity to go within and grow and figure out who I really am, um, so that when healing and quality of life do come, I am grounded and self assured in my identity so that I don't have to do all that work while I'm already out there living my dreams. I can do that work now.
Wow. That's very, very, very profound. And in sort of an alignment to sort of what we spoke about, or what I spoke about in the introduction about the pandemic and how
Mhm.
it maybe has provided us an opportunity to really be introspective and look within ourselves when things aren't very good, so that when things are good, we are exactly as you say, grounded. So that's
Right.
wonderful. But in terms of background, Lexi, so where did you grow up? Where did you, how did, where did Lexi come to be?
So I am from a small, I guess it would be a suburb of Charlotte. It's a small town outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, smaller, I guess, called Gastonia. So my dad is from Massachusetts. My mom is from Gastonia, born and raised. And I have one sibling, one brother. He's 4 years younger than me. If you saw us side by side, you wouldn't know it. You would think he was much older than me. But I grew up there, and I was very fortunate. My home life, was very harmonious, especially in contrast to a lot of the people that I knew growing up. A lot of the people that I knew, a lot of my friends and acquaintances in my peer group were coming from homes where either their parents were no longer together, or even if they were together, things at home were very traumatic and painful for them. And so even in elementary school, I kind of ended up adopting this role of, like, I think my mom said they used to call it like the playground therapist. So like I was like 5, 6, 7 years old on the playground at recess with all my friends, and someone would be struggling with something and they would just come find me. And like we would have our little elementary school therapy session on the playground. Um, so I've always been a nurturer. I've always been maternal, even when I was a child myself. Um, and I tell my mom often, her and my dad have always been very involved, in the community. My mom actually ran the sports program at the church I grew up in, um, for at least a decade of my childhood. My mom was also very involved, like in our school. Like my brother and I both, she was always a class parent. We had kids who looked at her like they're kind of like mom away from home, especially if things weren't great in their home life. So I tend to think that I get my community mindset for nurturing people and collaborating with people and calling people in, from my parents. My dad is also very involved in our church. He's very involved in his community. Um, and they both go out of their way, excuse me, they both go out of their way to make people feel seen. I mean, my brother and I both, any friends that we've had throughout the years, look at my parents as like a safe haven. My brother has friends even though my brother's away at college now, about to graduate in the spring. Go, Jacob. But he even has friends that will call my mom if they need something. Like they will call my mom to talk to her about things or if they're having a hard time. So I get a lot of that mindset from my parents.
Well, I mean, the old expression, the apple doesn't fall
Doesn't
far
fall
from
far from the
far from the
tree.
tree, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I wanna talk a little bit about sort of the at least spend a little bit of time talking about the challenges because it's the analogy of a flower or a tree that what most people see is the bark and the leaves and the beauty of the leaves. What they don't see is the work that has been done underneath and the challenges that a tree must go through to be able to blossom into something so beautiful. I use the example of a magnolia tree because last year I had an experience with a magnolia tree. And for a guy who punches people in the face for a living, or at least did for a while, you know, I say this very, very real that I truly had an experience with a magnolia tree. And it felt like this tree was talking to me, and I could feel the things that it had gone through before it blossomed into this beautiful thing. So,
Well, on that note, if you haven't gone out and hugged a tree, 10 out of 10 recommend. I did that for the first time a month ago, and I don't know what I expected, but it was not what happened. I just remember walking away from that feeling like the most grounded I've felt in a very long time and just like held. So if you haven't done that, highly recommend. But I agree with you. I mean, I think that the journey, it's always really important to acknowledge the journey because people don't just, that tree didn't just become the tree. There was
correct.
not like, it's not like there wasn't places of growth and transformation before that. I mean, even with the whole sunshine and human form thing, I don't think I've ever actually told anybody this, but when people call me that, I don't really envision like the whole sunshine, like the one you drew on the page when you were in elementary school, the circle with the little line.
Right, right.
I envision, like when you've had like a thunderstorm and the clouds like kind of start to fall apart in certain places and you see little streams of light poking out through the clouds. And then finally the cloud just breaks apart and this brilliant light just bursts through the clouds. That is what I want to embody as sunshine in human form is the fact that you don't have to ignore the darkness to have the light. I think that the light is more brilliant and more vibrant and more honest if you acknowledge the shadows and the clouds and the storms that you had to weather to get to it in the first place.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So talk us through that a little bit, Lexi. Like, so what was the journey? I mentioned a little bit in the intro about, how we had spoken before and how you didn't have I call it, you weren't the first picked amongst your peer
Yeah.
group. Tell us a little bit about that.
So growing up, I mean, I think back all the way to elementary school. I was always the person that was going out of my way to call people in, even at that age. Like when we had new students show up to the school, um, if they were in my grade level, I was the person that went and like introduced myself. It was like the greeting committee. Like I was the one that was like calling people in and saying like, hey, if you have questions, if you need anything, I got you. Like it's scary. This is new. And one of the first kind of like situations I can think of, I think it was second or third grade. Um, we had a new student, and I'd gotten fairly close to her in the first few weeks that she was there. And there was a group of girls in my grade that weren't too fond of me. I had been friends with them in earlier years, and I'm not really sure what happened with that, but we very much so like drifted apart. And when this new student showed up, she and I got really close, and I ended up. She basically came to me at recess one day after a few weeks and was like, "I'm not friends with you anymore. I'm going to be friends with this group because they're cooler than you," or something along those lines. And that was kind of the first time in my early childhood that I was like, "Man, like I'm never." I'm never going to be accepted like in my peer group. Like I'm never going to be that person that people are like, hey, do you want to come to my birthday party? Hey, do you want to hang out? Like, because even when I would go to things like that, like when I would go to birthday parties, I was always the one kind of like sitting to the side or like doing my own thing because I just wasn't really included. And I look back at that now and like in my identity now, I can acknowledge that that was probably because I was not in the same headspace as a lot of my peers. And that's been a theme throughout my whole life. And, it's one of the things I look back, my mom used to tell me that all the time. She's like, you just don't see the world the way that these kids in your peer group do. And that's not a bad thing. But when you're like, 6, 7, 8 years old, you just want to be like everybody else. You just want to be like accepted and you want to feel like you belong and you want to feel like this is your place. And it never felt that way for me. When I got to middle school, um, I went to a private school for middle school because I had really just gotten to a point where I didn't want to deal with the bullying from my elementary school anymore. And the only way to avoid that was to change to a new school. So I got a scholarship to a private school to do theater. And while I was in middle school, pretty much immediately, my first year, the popular girls, so to speak, definitely decided that they did not like me. Because I was very proud of the fact that I was there on a scholarship. But that wasn't cool because my parents weren't rich. And, I'm sitting here like I worked hard, I got good grades, like I'm passionate about what I do. I'm proud of the fact that I'm here on scholarship, and it just was like it like diminished the cool factor.
Of course.
And I remember going to a middle school dance because I guess private schools do that. And I went to a middle school dance, and this guy that I really had a crush on at the time asked me to slow dance. And to this day, and I'll never know, I don't know if him and the girl were in on this together or not, but it was very hurtful. I had gotten all dressed up for this dance and I felt so good about myself. And he asked me to dance, and 11-year-old me is like, oh my gosh, this is like a dream. It's like a movie. Um, and we go out to the floor to dance, and we're dancing, and all of a sudden, the like head of the popular girls, the Regina George, so to speak, comes up, and she essentially pushes me away from him. And she goes, now come on. You didn't think he really wanted to dance with you, did you? And then she twirls away with him. And 11-year-old me is just like, first of all, did that just happen? Because that seems like something out of a teenage film. Um, but then I was like, so I run downstairs. I'm sobbing. Any makeup I had on is just gone at this point. I called my mom, and I can laugh about it now. I mean, at the time, it was really, really hurtful. And I called my mom, and she comes and gets me, and I there are so many memories, even if I don't remember exactly what happened. There's so many memories. Even my mom has talked about this to me of like being a kid and a teenager, and her picking me up, and I'm just sobbing. Like after school, several days that she picks me up because it just constantly felt like I didn't fit in, and in my eyes, that meant I wasn't good enough. And in retrospect, like I can see that that wasn't the case. But, kid me was like, I just want people to like me. Like, um, so that was always really, really hard. And honestly, middle school was difficult because I was at that private school for all 3 years of middle school, sixth through eighth grade. And my health issues, we didn't know what they were yet, but they actually started when I was in middle school. So seventh grade year, I was playing soccer because I was also an athlete growing up until I kind of had to pick when I got to high school. And we were playing soccer and stuff, and I got really, really, really sick. I had mono and I had croup, and somewhere on the tail end of those two things, I had gone back to school and I ended up having 5 seizures in one day. And they never figured out the actual cause. Even now, we don't fully know. Um, and I was in the hospital for like 3 weeks. And those same girls and those same kids that had been so cruel to me happened to be kids that I played soccer with. So the coach makes them all come to the school and give me this like get well card and all that kind of stuff, which in theory, super, super sweet. But I'm reading these messages of like, oh, we love you and we miss you, and from these girls and these kids that had just been absolutely horrible to me.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and like, I want to be grateful, but I'm just mad, like, and hurt. Like, who does that? And so like even from that point on, like when I got to high school, the bullying itself stopped for the most part. But I still just I never felt like I really had a place. I was always like the weird theater girl, or like the girl that took everything too seriously. That was everybody's favorite thing. You take things too seriously. And I'm like, it's how my brain works. I don't know what to tell you. um, and looking back, like that was me being introspective, that was me being emotionally in tune with what was going on around me. But at the time you don't know that, you're just sitting here like, okay, I guess I'm just the weirdo. But something I go back to a lot, and this is something that I had to really start to live by even as an adult, because something that I've heard even as an adult from people who didn't like me, their favorite thing to say is that you're too much. You're too much and you're too nice. And I remember as a kid being so confused because I'm like, how can you be too nice? Like, kindness is not a bad thing. And people would be like, well, you're just so nice that it doesn't seem real, so it can't be real. And I'm like, but see, that's your perception. That doesn't mean that it's true. Oh, my mom just posted something in the chat. Chicky, that's her. Yeah, I remember many a moment where that was true, Mom.
Hi,
um,
Mom. Welcome to the show, Mom. Sending you some love.
um,
I
but
just
I'm
want to say, I want to say something, Lexi, here because, one of the things that really struck me about, this description of or sharing of your story is that how many of us are in a position where, you're talking about being kids and trying to fit in. How many times did I put bobby pins in my pants because that was the preppy style. So we used to put bobby pins on the inside of the pants, to fit in. It was ridiculous. I thought it was the stupidest thing, but I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like. You know what's crazy about it is that, Lexi, I don't know that as adults a lot change. We may do maybe not do as silly of things to fit in, but how many of us are still doing that? How many of us are still have that energy of really trying to just fit in somewhere?
Mhm.
Whereas opposed to looking within themselves and being powerful and coming and stepping into your power and coming from a place of this is who I am. If you don't like it, Walmart is having a special on kites and you can go fly one in the middle of the freeway.
So
You know?
my favorite kind of, and this is kind of where I was going, is like, that really used to hurt me. But the one thing that like would never shift for me from a child to now, um, was like people would say, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. And it would hurt, but it would never cause me to change myself. And that was kind of what shifted into this revelation for me of like, if you hear the sound all the time on TikTok and stuff. If I'm too much, you can go find less, because my muchness,
Well done.
like at the end of the day, and this is actually something I say in my practice and just like to people in my life on a daily basis. It's one of my affirmations that I do in the mirror most days. Um, I believe that the very things that society tells us we need to rid ourselves of are the very things that make us who we are. And the more of those things that we let go of, the less authentically we're living in who we actually are supposed to be. And that's the paradox of it all, is like our world is all about creating conformity. We're all supposed to be the same. Like I feel like this whole, you ever heard like the keeping up with the Joneses
Of
kind of
course.
thing?
Of course.
The keeping up with the Joneses mentality, honestly, is to me the adult equivalent of I just want to be liked and I just want to fit in. It is this concept of I just want to be I'm sorry, I want to address something in the comments real quick. So somebody just said, why give attitude? Just ignore it. Best answer to hate. As somebody who legitimately used to do that and choose neutrality and silence in situations of being hit with hate and vitriol and cruelty, there's one thing I can say. I do think that it is important to protect your energy. I do think it's important to know when it's productive to engage versus when it's not. But that statement in and of itself is the exact reason why I have an issue with the be the bigger person mentality. Because to look at somebody that has just been destroyed by another person's words and tell them you should choose to be the bigger person, that oftentimes presents in our society as a scapegoat to accountability. And here's the issue. I'm not, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to hit somebody back with the same hate they threw at me. But we also need to learn to discern the difference societally between accountability and being hateful, because there is a distinct difference. And that same argument of, well, trying to hold somebody accountable for their actions is being hateful is one of the main reasons that we can't make progress with so many of the needed conversations in our world right now. Because we're trying to get everybody to be nice and be kind. And it's like, you don't get to look at people that have been literally brutally beaten down, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or all three, by other people and tell them you don't get to feel that way and you don't get to express that. And I don't know that that was your intention, but I do feel like that's something that needs to be addressed, because I have heard that throughout my entire life. And it hurts when you've just been shattered by somebody and everybody around you looks at you and says, choose to be the bigger person. I spent my entire life choosing to be the bigger person. And what I saw was a bunch of people who got off scotch-free without ever being held accountable for their actions. And that's why my
Or
mentality in that is different.
or we could take the Heather Cinco de Mayo approach is just lost my last shit. Don't have any left to give.
I just think that there's like this
Love it, Heather.
societal like this misconception societally that if I stand up for myself against somebody that is treating me poorly, all of a sudden I'm being mean. And it bothers me at a personal level because I spent my mom can attest to this. I spent the majority of my life never standing up for myself. I would stand up for everybody else, but I would never stand up for myself because I would hear in the background somewhere, well, now you're being mean. Excuse me, I'm standing up for myself. There is a difference.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to derail that, but that was just something that it was
I
very
love it.
important.
I love it. I think that the idea is that you use the word discernment. And it's the discernment of knowing when to be the bigger person and when it's not okay. See, because I relate to that because I've had some I have brothers, and one brother in particular had a lot of challenges with depression, and I was always there for him until it started to affect my own personal life, and it started to have an impact on my life, and I said, I can't do this anymore. You have to be able to take care of yourself. I want to give a special shout out, Lexi, to a couple of dear friends who have come and joined us today. I got to say hello to my friend, Just Rob Official. Thank you, Rob, for being here. It was great seeing you this week in your stream. Thank you for being here. And of course, Charlene, Smiling Spirits here. Thank you for the wonderful compliment. She gave us wonderful compliments, Lexi, that we look lovely today. Always a pleasure to have all of you here. And to our new friend, oh yeah, Mr. Krabs, thanks for being here. Lexi, I wanna continue from that part because so you go through these challenges. You wonderfully painted a picture of what it was like growing up. And after high school, after high school, what happened? Where was the shift? Because you maintained who you were. You maintained what I call your individuality.
Yeah. Um, so for me, so college was very interesting because diagnostically, my medical issues really started in high school. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis my junior year, and I started doing musical theater and performance um, from. I started doing that from really elementary school. I think I was in my first show when I was 5, and I just fell in love with it. And so I was on stage, like that was my main extracurricular throughout school. And I made a decision very early, like elementary school, that's what I wanted to do with my life. So I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get a Bachelor of Fine Arts in musical theater performance, and I wanted to move to New York, and I wanted to pound the pavement and audition for all the things. And this is why I'm like, we always think that we know what we need or what we want. Um, and then like the universe and the divine is just like, no. So for me, I took a gap year between high school and college because I had gone out and auditioned for places, but I was very concerned about the fragility of my physical health at that time. And after talking to my parents and everything, I was like, I'm going to take a gap year. I'm going to work on getting in as good of a shape physically as I possibly can. I'm going to, really try to stick to like a nutrition plan and work out. And um, I ended up losing. So when I graduated high school, I was like 190 pounds, I think. And I'm like 5'1". When I went to my first year of college, I had gotten down to like 125, 130 pounds. Smallest I had ever been. And at the time, felt fairly healthy. But I went to school. So I got into my one of my dream schools in Boston. And was asked to, come to their bachelor's in acting program. And um, it was super expensive. And so, I opted for a school closer to home. It was a private university, and I got like $23,000 in scholarships, like something where it was like, it's a no brainer. Like it's just better financially. So I went there, and it ended up being a really big blessing because while I was in school, my health spiraled significantly. So as a freshman, this was a private university, fairly small musical theater BFA program. And, I think what made this whole situation in my life harder was that I was excelling. Out of our 4 main stage shows that year, I was cast in 3 of them. I was in the first semester, I was in the ensemble, and I started to feel my body kind of wavering physically, but I was able to push through. And then, like a week before we opened, I got sick. Started running like 102, 103-degree fever. My cast photo for that show, like it was like a sepia tone photo, but I'm literally sweating because my fever was so high. And we didn't really get a ton of clarity. Went to urgent care, didn't get any like answers really. But I went home for winter break, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna rest and finish my schoolwork and all that. So first semester, I didn't get to do the show. Ended up not getting to do it because of that. But I was still like a dean scholar, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna recharge, go back, ready, full steam. Second semester. Second semester, I got cast in both of our main shows and the showcase. And I was the understudy for the lead in our main musical, which I guess had not happened to a freshman yet at that point. And I was able to do the shows, but that semester, not even a month and a half into the semester, I got very, very sick. And it wouldn't go away. It lasted the rest of the semester, so like almost 4 months. And I was going to urgent care, and at this point, like they're telling me it's a virus. I was like, it's been like almost 2 months. It's not a virus. And they're like, well, at that point, you got to go home, like, and see your regular doctors. We can't help. I was like, okay. So I'm missing classes at the end of the week pretty often to drive the 3 hours each way home to go see physicians. And it was such a chaotic time. And I just felt like everything I'd ever wanted was like slipping through my fingers. And actually to this day, I went from a Dean Scholar first semester to like a 2.4 GPA my second semester because I had 2 incompletes that when I got home that summer I was planning on finishing, and my health continued to get worse. I passed out backstage during one of the shows that I was in that summer. Um, and I never got to do the work. And the school refused to work with me. My two options that I was given halfway through the semester when I told them what was happening was either suck it up and stick it out or medically withdraw from the entire semester, and then you don't take any of your classes and you don't get to do any of the shows. I was like, well, that's not a great setup. So I came home and I made the decision that summer to not return to college. And that was a very hard time for me because that was everything I'd ever wanted. Like, I'd always wanted to do that with my life. And it just felt like it slipped away. Interestingly, Sean, my husband, he and I got engaged that August. We got married that December because we thought he was deploying. He ended up not deploying. But it was so interesting to come out of such like a dark season in my life and then like enter into like immediately into this like new exciting bright chapter. And we moved to Georgia and I started seeing a counselor down there. And I will never forget, because this is like when I think about the turning point, this is what I remember. I went into my first session with this counselor and I'm sitting here and he's asking me to tell him about myself. And I'm like, well, I'm Lexi. I'm a wife, I'm married, like I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. And then I was like, well, and I'm an actor and a singer, kind of. I mean, I'm not really in college, but like, I'm this and he stopped me and he was like, so you didn't answer my question. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, you just told me a bunch of titles and roles and things you do. That's not who you are. And I remember that being so jarring for me because I looked at him and was like, there's a difference. And he was like, yeah. He was like, I know that's hard in society because our society tells us that who we are is defined by what we do. But it's not. They're two completely separate entities. And that shook me. It broke everything I thought I knew about myself, about life, about all of it. And it's when I think back to things like that, that's where I kind of start to believe like what my husband theorizes, which is like, maybe the reason this happened to me physically and this has been a continuing thing is because when I think back to who I was, even when I moved to Georgia with my husband, I'm grateful for her, but I don't know who she is because she's not me. Like, I was so uncentered in myself at the time. And it's so interesting to me because when even at that point, when I felt so uncertain of who I was, the outside world didn't know that. Um, and it's so funny to me, like how many people over the years have been like, oh, you're so confident. Oh, you're so this. And I'm like, now I'm starting to embody that like internally. Like I believe that. But for the longest time, I didn't. And even then, people were like, I see that, like I see this light, I see this. And I'm like, it's so interesting to me because as I really kind of like figure out who I am and embody myself in that and step fully into my power, I'm starting to see everything that everybody else was already seeing. But I didn't acknowledge it before because I didn't see it in myself.
So, so my question, Lexi, is so what was the result? What did you come up with? Now, years later, what did you come up with? What was the answer? Who is Lexi Fontaine? She's a name that your mom and dad gave you. You know, you're this, you're that, you're a singer, you're an actor. I was reading, going, holy jeez, is there anything not on this list of what she can do? So like, but who is Lexi?
um,
What did you come up with?
so what's so interesting about that question is I feel like I should share this as like a little segue. So about halfway through the process of the years that followed him asking me that question, I thought I had it figured out. I was out here I have all these kindness projects I do every year, and I've been doing a lot of them since like high school. Um, and, I was like, oh, I'm like this super kind person. Like, that's who I am. I'm kindness. I ran into a problem with that. My whole identity became centered around what I could do for other people. And because of that, I ran myself into the ground. And my health all this time was continuing to decline. And because I was so set that any value I potentially had relied on what I could provide for other people, I would literally land myself in the hospital because I would just push myself way too far. So that was a solid like 3 or 4 years of being like, I got this figured out. And then my body and the universe were like, not quite. And so if you ask me that now, it's funny, I haven't thought about this from a label perspective recently. um, I would say that Lexi is a person that always leads from the heart center. I would say that I am a person that everything I do really comes from this desire to make people feel seen and safe and loved and validated. Um, so much of my identity now is centered around wanting to be the person that I wish I had had. Um, and because of that, I think that the other thing that I center a lot of my identity on now is that I never want to stop learning. I never want to stop growing. I never want to stop expanding. So I define myself as like a lifelong like seeker of wisdom and knowledge, because even when you think you have everything figured out, the universe will nudge you and remind you that you don't actually know anything. Um,
Yep.
and I've really tried to reframe like when those situations present themselves as I can feel my feelings. If it stresses me out, if it upsets me, that's fine. I can feel that. But then I try to look at it as an opportunity, because when I look back, like the past, so I mean, at this point, I've been sick for out of my 27 years on this earth, I've been sick for 15 of it. Um, and when I think back, there have been so many moments where I've just been like, can somebody please take this away from me? Like, I don't, but for every one of those moments where there's been a bad day or like I can't get out of my bed, I also sit here and I'm like, this has given me such a lens of understanding for things that there's no way I would have had, especially at this point in my life, without those experiences. And so, like, there's this almost like melancholy gratitude that comes with that, because yes, it's been hard. And yes, there are still times where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. But overall, I'm so grateful because I've learned so much. And it's also forced me, I'm finally at a point in my life at 27 where I can say that I feel like I am surrounded by a circle of people that genuinely value me as a person. And that my medical issues, any limitations I have, if I can't do something for them that I told them I would do because my body is just shut down, they're not going to stop being friends with me. They're not going to tell me that they don't value me anymore. And I never thought I would have that. I look around at my husband and friends and the people that are in my life sometimes, and I just want to cry because there's just so much gratitude. I'm like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm so grateful because I have all of these gifts around me. And one of my favorite things has been is like I've started to step in my own power. There's a statement on my website, on my little bio on my website, that says, I want to make myself abundantly clear. I have no intentions of fixing you because I don't believe you need me to fix you. I have every intention of empowering you to recognize that you have all the power you've ever needed to heal yourself and step into your power within yourself already. And it's always been there. Because that realization is the most liberating mindset shift I've had in my life thus far.
Well, if I could provide you with an answer of how you got here, Lexi, the truth is that whether or not you look back to the passage in the Bible that says, if you want more love, then give love. If you want more friends, then be a friend. And so for me, it's clear that you're here, and I do want to give a special shout out to our group, the
Yeah.
group that we belong in. And you know, I'd love for you to take a few moments to talk about that as well, because I
Yeah.
think that it's a perfect segue into who you've become.
Yeah.
And you know, the universe aligning you with like-minded people. And of course, we're lucky that Charlene is with us, Heather's with us, Josh is with us, you know, all together here on the show, supporting you and supporting me and supporting the show because of the impact that you know, we've had, or that, you know, like I said, you've become almost a co-facilitator of this workshop. You know, I just, I can see the value that you've provided everyone, and how everybody loves you in this group. So certainly I believe that I have the answer as to how you got here. But maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, the deep dive group has been such a gift. I feel like it's one of those things for me that there's just not enough words to do it justice. This space that you've created, and I've told you this before. I feel like, you know, the nature of a space speaks directly to the intentions, integrity, and motivation of its facilitator. Um, and I think that who you are and what you bring to spaces, both ones that you create and ones that you just go into as a participant, um, has a lot to do with why that group is what it is. Um, for me, I think that one of the most beautiful gifts about this group has been that there are not a lot of truly safe, sacred, open spaces in the world. There are a lot of places that claim to be that, but are not that. Um, so when you find something like that, you really have to cherish it. You need to like sit with it and appreciate it for all of what it is. And I think that one of my favorite things about this group has been watching everybody like find like pieces of that core identity that they have. Watching people, you know, watching those revelations happen where your purpose or like what you really care about just clicks. Watching those moments in general with people in my life has always been super rewarding for me. And I think that the work that is done in this vision board deep dive class is the work that forces you to go deeper than most people go on their own. Um, and that's a gift, especially because you don't find, I can say from my own experiences, there aren't many spaces that I would be comfortable going to that depth with, because it's very difficult to find spaces where you truly feel safe enough to be that vulnerable. Um, but this space has created that. Um, and I mean, I look around like some of the moments that have stood out to me the most thus far. Like I look around, Charlene is like really starting to. She messaged me the other day on Facebook. I haven't forgotten. I'm gonna reply. I promise. But I was reading her message because it was the picture that I posted of me and my husband and my story. We were going on a date, and she was like, "I'm gonna find that. Like, you guys are adorable, and I know I'm gonna find that person." And I was like, "You know what? Heck yeah, you are!" And I'm so glad you recognize it,
Yeah.
because I remember like kind of her demeanor when she walked in. And you know, our first board I think was the love and relationships. Oh no, it was health and wellness and then love and relationships. And you know, I remember that, and it was a very emotional board for her because of things that she's been through. And I look at her now, I'm like, she's claiming it. She's like, I know they're out there and I'm gonna have it. And I'm like, heck yeah, and you deserve it. And then like,
I
you know, I think
deserve this, bitches.
and that's what you're saying. Like, I feel like, you know, our society is so built around this idea that we don't deserve what we dream of. We don't deserve what we yearn for. And like, who says? Like like why does society get to determine that? Especially because, you know, one of my like things that I go back to constantly now is like when you see and know the true reasons why systems and beliefs and societal constructs are in place, you can't unknow that. So like I look now and I'm like, if only teenage Lexi had known that the reason that the world and society didn't want her to be her full in your face, much, much, much self was because that meant that she was living in her true full power. She never would have hid herself away because who cares?
That's
Like,
right.
not about that. And so, like, I think that's been the most beautiful thing is like, there's a lot of things and growth and kind of revelations that I've seen happen in our group with this class that have almost happened without it even needing to be like blatantly stated. Like this recognition of like maybe why we held a belief about something. And it's like that wasn't even for me. It was for somebody else. Or it was because I heard this when I was like 16 and like just internalized it. And so watching those walls crumble and watching people build something that feels more in tune with who they really are is it's freaking beautiful. Like I look forward to that because it's empowering and inspiring to watch that happen in people that you care about and people that you surround yourself with. And I really feel like this space, because it is so intimate and it is so small and it is so like deep and vulnerable, we've been able to cultivate like really meaningful connections through this. And that's, I mean, that's a gift. Like you don't have a lot of spaces like that in the world right now.
But
It's a
I
gift.
want to. I want to say something, Lexi, that is really sort of, really hitting me to say, like when you're channeling something, you
Yeah.
feel this, and one of this is that's what makes you a great healer. You see, you've said so many things, so I want to unpack a few of those. Number one, that I can't change anybody. All I do is I use what I call what Dr. Glasser calls the reality therapy process, and to help people self-evaluate, and you use the word empower. That's what I want to do, is empower people, and that's why this works, because you want to empower people to do exactly that, stand in their own power, and be unapologetic about who they are. That this is who I am. This is my individuality. And if you don't like it, that's okay.
Right. Because I'm not
That's
for
okay.
everyone.
I'm not for everyone. I'm not for everyone.
That's
Over the
okay.
last couple of classes, Lexi, I've been in it, man, and I've been given the love, the what I call tough love, to say, look, you guys have this vision board now. We're one piece away from completing this vision board. So what? What does that mean? Now you have some clarity. I get it. It's great. But what are you putting into place to reach that
Right.
desired state? What things are you doing? What habits are you changing and creating to help you reach that place? And that's
Right.
why you're a fabulous healer. And yes, Heather, she missed the himbo conversation. We're
I'll have
not
to get
going there. We are not going there. Um,
um
so
yeah.
I just want to conclude by saying, look, Lexi, what we do as healers is help in facilitating the healing, but the healing is done on their own. The healing is done because whether you believe in God, Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, Ensof, Elohim, Eloha, doesn't matter what you call it. Whatever it is, the answers really lie within. And all we do as healers is help facilitate and bring up so that that person can realize their potential. And that's why you're going to be and are successful already as a healer.
Thank you. My dogs are losing their mind because somebody is knocking on my door
That's
and I
okay.
gotta
My little
mute
guy's going nuts too. I had to mute it.
it.
But
um
so Lexi, what I want to get into now is that, so you've lived this. You've lived what I would call a challenging life. And through it all, you persevered. We talked about perseverance and resilience in your life. Talk me through now, what's what's the future for Lexi Fontaine?
my dogs.
That's okay. We love it.
Okay. um, so, it's really interesting because I had a call with one of my spiritual mentors last night. And she actually asked me that same question, intriguingly enough. Um, and, I told her it's difficult for me to answer because, well, for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that the the physical limitations for me. I don't know what my health is going to look like in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. Um, I can sit here and say what I would like it to look like, but the reality is that's not something I have control over. And so one thing that I've tried to do in terms of looking at like long term goals is looking at it more so of like, what do I want my impact to be? What do I want like that? I brought this up in a class, I think last week's, but what does that legacy look like for me? What kind of impact do I want to build? Um, and I started thinking about like with my physical stuff, with my limitations as we try to figure those things out. Um, what can I do? What can I do now? And so there's a few things that I've never compromised on, even when the health has gotten really bad. Realistically, I never stopped auditioning for things. So as a vocalist, as an actor, I might not be doing it as much as I was when I was in college for it, but I'm still actively, putting myself out there because I do believe that I was given those gifts and those talents for a reason. And I think that they're part of my purpose here, regardless of, specifically what role they might play. Can I go check on them real quick?
You certainly can.
I'm so
In the
sorry.
meantime, I can give a special shout out to the beautiful Brianna Evil Ginger 76. Welcome. And to my Chinese supermodel friend, Mr. Albert Wong. Thank you, brother, for looking after Leo for a little bit. I really appreciate it. Of course, I got to give a special shout out to my boy, Edwin 100X. Always a pleasure to have you here, my friends. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Thank you very much. Yep, Brianna's in the house, Heather's in the house, Charlene in the house, and Josh Leslie, of course, in the house. All from our wonderful, wonderful group of incredible humans. But while she's going to check on what's happening at the house with the dog, I'm totally moved by what this woman has to say. I'm totally moved about the fact that she knows that, you know, while things are tough, you have to persevere. So maybe there's a couple of mentors that Lexi's had in her life that motivated her. And I'm very grateful because, and I say this all the time, I have Josh. I remember Josh telling me last week, "Hey bro, listen man, I think it's time for me to go get a job." And I said, I have to figure this out. Things are moving quickly. Mediation is started. I'm going to be I'm single man again. And all I can say is that it was Josh that said, "No way, man, no way. We have to make sure that you stay on course. Stay on course because the gifts that you have received from God come at a time when the world needs it, when they need these gifts." And that's what I feel exactly about you, Lexi. That the God-given talents, what Albert Wong calls your superpowers, the Lexi Fontaine superpowers are needed right now. So, thank you. I'm glad you got everything sorted out at home too.
Yeah, sorry. Somebody was knocking on the door, and I was like, "They don't go away. The dogs are not going to stop." Both of my buddies are rehomes, like they're basically rescues in some way, shape, or form, and they both have some anxiety and some trauma. So, like, if somebody comes to the door, they don't handle that too well. So that's why I was like, when it kept happening, I was like, let me just go check. But yeah, I think that, and it's funny that you just talked about like the God given talents and like those things being needed. I mean, basically, what I ended up kind of centering my answer on when I talked to my mentor last night um, was that my main thing is that I want anything and everything I do to accomplish three things. Any person that is on the receiving end of whatever I do. So whether that be singing something, whether that be um, me doing acting or storytelling, whether that's just a conversation. There's three things that I always want to be true about me in all interactions. The first of which is that I want my presence to feel like love. I want my presence to, my thing I told my mentor last night was that I want to embody Olaf. I want to be, I like warm hugs, and I want my presence to feel like a warm hug. I want, when people talk to me, when people interact with me, whether in person or virtually, I want that to be something that makes that person be able to sit there for a moment and say, like I'm loved, and I'm resting in that for a minute. Like I'm safe here. So that's like the first thing. The second thing is that, and that's why I also talk about being like heart centered and everything I do kind of almost happening from this like string on my heart that's just like connecting me to people. Because when I think about what matters most to me, it's connection, collaboration, and community building. Um, but the second thing is that I whether my spiritual business is what takes off, whether I end up being, a vocalist and an artist, whether I end up doing both, who knows? Um, I always want to be the person that no matter how much visibility I have, no matter how big my platform might end up being, whatever, I want to be that person that makes people feel seen at a soul level. Because I feel like so many interactions in our society are like ships passing in the night. Like we're just not really like intentional or present fully in our interactions. And like even the example I gave my mentor last night was like these kindness projects that I've been doing for years now. One of them is for my birthday. So every year, like I'll celebrate my birthday by doing an act of kindness for every year I've been alive. And most of those acts of kindness involve like the general public, like strangers. And so something that I've always tried to do is like, even if I know I'm never going to see that person again, I try to make that moment as intentional and present and meaningful as I can. Because my hope is that even if it's just the way they felt, the way that my energy made them feel, I hope that one day when they have a moment where the darkness is overpowering them and they just feel like everything is falling apart, something in them will take them back to that moment. And that will be enough motivation and enough reassurance for them to keep going. Because when I think back to my darkest moments, those little reminders of how people felt about me or what their actions or their words made me feel,
There it
those are
is.
that's what I go back to.
And Lexi, there was a wonderful saying that I somebody shared with me the other day about, and I think it was part of the SEAL team leaders, was that you'll never remember what somebody had said to you, but you'll always remember how somebody made you feel.
It's a Maya Angelou quote, and I love it. I have it written in so many different places. Yes, like because it's like she says, like people will forget what you did, and people will forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
One more time.
And
One more time. One more time.
people will forget what you said, and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
See, Heather wrote, "Lexi's the note taker," but we need a note taker because that quote is brilliant.
Is it possible for me to like make a comment while I'm on
I'm
here?
sure. I'm sure you could. I'm sure there's a chat. There's a chat thing there that you can type in. I'm sure. That's where you need Josh Leslie.
Yeah, I just see the private chat. I don't see the, but
Mm.
I mean, I'll put it somewhere eventually, in the box or something. But
I'll
no,
put
I
it
mean, that's
somewhere
literally,
eventually.
that's been a quote that, like, I mean, I've had that quote saved in any number of places for years now
Yeah.
because I think it's important. Like, even if that, and the thing about it is too, this is why I say, like, even in those moments where stress and chaos and tension want to, like, you just want to run with that and spew whatever. I try really hard to, like, take a step back within myself in those moments because the thing about it is once you say something, you can't take it back.
Yeah.
So, however it makes that person feel, there you go, Josh. Thank you.
Way to go,
Um,
Josh.
but I think about that and I'm like, even if they don't remember the words, they might not even remember who said it to them. But if it hurt them, they're sure as hell gonna remember it.
Yeah, of course.
And so, like, my thing has always been, when I think back to the points in my life where people have made me feel the worst about myself, the main reason that I feel like everything about my life, from conversations to work to career goals to dreams, is about having the ability to have a big enough platform to be visible and impact people, as many people as possible at a deep soul level, is because I made a promise to myself, even as a child, like in middle school. I was never going to be responsible for making somebody else feel the way that I was made to feel.
Yeah. It's true. And that's why the mission, live illuminating or live illuminated, the mission is exactly that, that all I want to do is make people feel that they're heard, that they're seen, and that they're felt. That this is why there's a love here, Lexi, because there's not a lot of people I've met that share in that, and only over the course of moving to a new city and meeting the people that are part of my wolf pack and the part of the mastermind group that I'm part of, have I really been truly blessed, because coming to a new city is pretty scary, even if it's only 5 hours away from the one that you lived at. I just feel like the people that I have connected with have made me feel like that. And again, shout out to Josh, because he does that for me. He makes me feel heard. He makes me feel like I matter. He believes very much in my abilities. And to be honest with you, Lexi, from all of us in our little mastermind group, we can very, very confidently say that that's what you've done for all of us, is that you've made us feel, not you've made us, you've allowed us the space to feel heard as well. And everybody, see, you burp, there goes Heather. And
I
that's
love you, Heather.
and
Oh,
that's really, really powerful to me, because I try now. I'll tell you what I've done. I'm so streamlined about who I want to hang out with now. So everybody tells these stories about, well, Krumel, when he was a kid, he was with everybody and was a popular kid. And yeah, but I shared with you that being popular is not what it's cut out to be. All it meant is that my heart was broken a lot more, because I wanted to be that kind, giving person, and in the end got taken advantage of a lot. And so I've become so streamlined about who I want to hang around. And everybody that I do hang around, Lexi, provides me a space where I can be heard, where I can be felt, and where I can be appreciated. And I love that mission that you have, because God, from my mouth to God's ears, Lexi, the world fucking needs more love and more light. And you truly are a ray of sunshine.
you.
God has given you this unbelievable gift to make people feel so at home and so welcome. And what an incredible gift that is. I want to ask you a question, though. It's one of my favorite questions to ask my guests. I try to ask all of them. It doesn't always happen, but Lexi, what I want to know is that if you could put together in a few sentences the three things that you're most proud of, what would you say that they are?
Wow, it's a deep question, and brevity is not my strong suit, but I think we can try. um, Gosh, three things that I'm most proud of. This is a hard question for me because I just recently got to a place in my life, like within the last year and a half, where I can actually like acknowledge that I'm proud of myself for anything. So this is, um, I think that the biggest thing is that I'm proud of myself for never letting the darkness or the cruelty or the hardship that I've endured harden my heart. I'm very, very proud of myself for being able to keep tenderness.
I'm sorry, what did you call it? The honey nut Felios? What did you call it?
Yeah. So Rhea, my friend Rhea, my soul sister, will watch this later. And yes, Rhea, I told him that you say honey nut filio that he got to sit down.
That one hit the honey nut Felios. I love it.
I mean, there's a Zoe Deschanel quote that literally says that. It
Ah,
literally,
that's
like,
awesome.
I don't remember exactly how it goes, but I used to have this saved on like every Pinterest board ever when I was a kid because it made me feel understood at a level that I didn't as a teenager. And it's like, don't ever let the harshness and cruelty of the world take away the tenderness of your heart. And so that's my thing. Like, I'm super proud of myself because the instinct when you're hurt so much is to just withdraw, just like put up all these walls and push everybody out and never let anything in. And I've just had to get really comfortable with the fact that, like, grief is the price we pay for love. So eventually, like, yeah, I'm going to give myself and I'm going to try to be, I'm going to try to discern like who's here for the right reasons and those kinds of things. But inevitably, I'm going to be wrong at some point and someone is going to hurt me. And I had to make a decision that that price was still worth it for me because at the end of the day, you can't have one without the other. It's that duality principle. Um, so I think, overall, that's the thing I'm proudest of. My other two things that I'm proudest of are that something that I really struggled with for a very long time because I wanted so desperately to be like seen and needed was that criticism used to be very difficult for me to take. And on the flip side of that, compliments have always been very difficult for me to take. Criticism was hard for me to take because it felt like that person was implying that they no longer liked me or valued me. Compliments were hard to accept because I didn't believe them. So I would explain them away. Um, and I finally am at a point in my life where, for the most part, I feel like I've learned how to take both of those things because I've found peace with the fact that, like, I was a perfectionist growing up because it felt like that was like the way to be valued and to belong. And now I'm like, I'm never going to be perfect because nobody is. And I don't have to be perfect to have a purpose. Um, and, really sitting with that and accepting that I think has liberated me in a lot of ways. And I'm really proud of myself for that because that was a struggle for me for the majority of my life. Um, so being able to take things for what they are now, I'm really proud of myself for that. And then I think the last one, so this is not even something I feel like I can take credit for, but I'm proud of myself for being this for a lot of people that I've known. Um, to me, I'm very proud of myself for being able to transmute my pain, my struggles, the spaces I wish I had. I'm very proud of myself for being able to transmute that into something that has given me the ability to help carve out constructive, guided spaces for people in my life so that they can do that work too and be supported and held while they do it. Because the amount of friends that I've had who have like complex PTSD, copious amounts of trauma, um, difficulties with their families, difficulties with friendships or grief, and the things that they've had said to them. And to be able to be like, for a lot of them, the first person that has sat with them. I mean, I'm not going to, for privacy purposes, I won't say names, but somebody that comes to mind. I have a dear friend who lost her husband. He was in the military. They were only married for like 3 months, and he got in a car accident. He died on impact. And she was super young. I mean, she was like early 20s. And she's had people say things to her like, you should just be over it. You weren't even married that long. Like, you should just like hurry it up, stop grieving. Like, that's the implication. And I was one of the first people in her life, she told me that looked at her and said, no one gets to give you a timeline for how you're allowed to grieve. You can take whatever time you need because no one knows how you felt about each other except for you. Nobody else lives in your soul or has your heart or knows what that connection was. And like, to me, I have to take the anger and the fury and the rage that I feel when I hear stories like that from people, because it takes a lot to make me angry, but that shit makes me so angry.
Yeah.
Because this world is hard enough without people looking at you and telling you that you're taking too long to feel your feelings, that your grief is a burden for them. That angers me. And so I have to take that anger and transmute it and channel it into something that is actually helpful to the people that are being hurt by that. And so a lot of times when people see me pursuing something or being passionate about something, it's because I'm angry about it. I'm enraged. But I have to do the work within myself to say, okay, how can I channel this sacred rage into doing something that's helpful, doing something that's actually going to make a difference? And, I'm grateful for that. I'm proud of myself for that because I've been able to do that, even at like an individual level, like with friends, with people in my life, people that I've done readings for people where they weren't expecting to break down and they did. Because my readings, my tarot readings, my mediumship readings, my intuitive readings, they're usually very centered around personal empowerment and encouragement. So like there's things that people will come in and they haven't even told me they're struggling with, and it'll come out in the cards or in the spirits that come through. And, I'll say it and they just break down. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is why that is the underlying foundation for anything I do in this life, from this point until the day that I take my last breath. Because this world is too damn hard for us to be out here making it worse for each other. We need each other, and the sooner people realize that, the sooner the world will fucking change. Because
Amen, sister.
until people acknowledge that we need each other, we start treating people with compassion and understanding, it's not going to get better.
No, 100%. Yeah. Thank you, Painted Shoes. Cheers. I'll drink to that. Yeah, my God, Lexi, there's so much to unpack with that. But that's why I want to work with men in the wolf pack, because I believe that there's a shift happening, and it's a huge shift. In fact, one of the things, I have to read it to you, but it was I think it's a picture of Lenny Kravitz,
Mm-hmm.
and he's holding a sign. Let me get it up for you because it's worth the read.
That's one of
And
my favorite things about you, is that you are super focused on working with men, because it needs to be happening.
it has to, because so there's this picture. I don't know if you guys can see it, and if you can see the sign, but I'll read it to you.
Yeah, because the sign is backwards. I can see the picture, but
It's time to turn it over to women. Men have had their chance to run the world, and look at where we are.
Whew.
And so, why do I say we work? I need to work with men because the challenge is in the definition now of what male energy or masculinity is now, and how that's changing in the world. You know,
Yep.
men not being the breadwinners anymore, men having this idea of what life should be like. And one of the things that you talked about, which is super powerful, is this idea that just this idea that, and I don't want to lose that thought. Man, it's coming in and out fast. I don't want to. I want it to be this place where, for men, it's
Mhm.
okay to be emotional and cry. It doesn't have to be you're weak because you're a man and you're crying. No. But that I want to create a space where more men can come and share and feel vulnerable and be open
Mhm.
and show their emotion because it's okay to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, that's something that really stands out to me, and it's part of the reason that I really love the work you do because this is where like I'm hoping the conversations will continue and the discourse will expand around the fact that this is why we say systemically these constructs hurt everyone. Patriarchy hurts everyone because men end up being emotionally stunted because you as a society we raise men to say like well, I mean, it goes back to, I mean, people are like, it's not that deep, but it is. Like, even when people are like little kids, there's no reason we should have like toddlers out here, like toddler boys wearing like, I'm a heartbreaker, and girls being like, Daddy says I can't date till I'm 30. Like, because at the end of the day, we're still implying that there is inherent value in like whether you have a partner or whether you can, how many people you can get with. Like, and for men, I think that's really toxic because it prevents you from being able to really access that like deep level of emotional vulnerability. I mean, I was reading something the other day, and I'll see if I can find it, but I think it was an article, might have been on Psychology Today, but it was an article about how there's a very large percentage of men that, rely solely on their wife or their female, partner to be their singular resource for emotional like output and processing. That was so jarring to me because my own husband, I mean, my husband has trauma. My husband has, I mean, and it caused significant issues for us, like his depression and a lot of the like struggles he had with not only like acknowledging emotions, but even figuring out like how to identify them. Like, what is this? Why am I feeling it? We don't create spaces for that in the world. And it's because it's intentional, it's by design. And the only way it's ever going to change is if everything that I think about when I think about the work I want to do, when I think about why I want to do this work, and honestly, like listening to you talk about those two things for yourself, the best thing about all of this is I see all of this work as a big middle finger of rebellion to the systems that have kept us here for so long. Because, and of course, there's resistance, and of course, there's going to be pushback because it's change. Most people don't accept change willingly. But if we can get past that uncomfortable pushback, then we can actually start doing the things that make long-term lasting change. And that work is so important and it's daunting and it's draining, but it is needed because nothing ever changes if we don't do it. So
Of
like my
course.
motto in life is do it scared. There are a lot of things that I'm freaking terrified to do, but I do it anyway
Yeah,
because
of course.
somebody's got to break the cycle.
Yep. 100%. Lexi, this has been a remarkable conversation and more importantly, a refreshing one. I mean, I feel that you just sing to my heart. That your words, the ability to connect speaks to me in a way that few people have spoken to me and made me feel. I know that there's it's funny because we've spoken over the course of 90 minutes about how difficult it was growing up with with little friends and not being the first person chosen, and yet you fast forward and there are people on this chat who have just written about how much they love you, including our dear friend Fran, who says, Lexi, I love you so much, you beautiful soul.
I love
And
you too, Franny. Thank you for that.
it's truly a testament to who you are, Lexi, and how you said something that really touches my heart about how the trials and the struggles that you've gone through never hardened your heart. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a winner. That's what this is all about. Because we are going to go through difficult times. I've said to many people, my cards haven't been very good. I haven't been dealt great cards. But in those struggles, I have never let it harden my heart. And if I have, then I've come back. I've come back because there is something that happened to me, Lexi, that really hardened my heart. And that's okay because I'm back now. And I'm back to who I was. And that is a person who opens their heart, who makes you feel confident and makes you feel open and vulnerable and creates a space for you to be your authentic self. So, Lexi, what an absolute pleasure it has been to have you here. I just want to say that if you're in need of love, if you're in need of conversation, please reach out to Lexi because she is just an amazing human being. And Lexi, maybe you'll consider allowing me the opportunity to have a healing with you because I'm ready for one.
Of course. Yes, I would love that. I'm, ugh, I'm emotional. Thank you so much.
What a great 90 minutes. Yep, she certainly is, Franny. Sunshine in human form. We all know that, and it's amazing. And I want to thank everybody today. I'm grateful for everybody in the chat who has just spread this light. People need to take this and share it. So please go and share this interview because people need to hear this story. Put it on your Facebooks, your LinkedIn's, your TikToks, your face, whatever the heck it is, all that social media stuff, and get it out there because this is powerful. And Franny, I love you too. You're awesome, girl. Thank you so much for being here. Lexi, thank you for sharing some sunshine with all of us today.
Thank you for letting me be here.
I can't believe it's 90 minutes. I want to go on. We're past 90 minutes, and I can't believe it. So Josh, let us know where we're going to rate to. Lexi, I'm going to put you backstage as I share my final thoughts. But thank you. Thank you
Thank you, Mel. I
for your
appreciate
sunshine.
you.
Thank you for your sunshine. I've got my two beautiful crystals today that I've held in my hand the whole show, polished, given to me from Albert Wong's wife. There it is. Let me fix that. Isn't that beautiful? Polished
Yes,
in a heart. That's what I held in my hand today for my show. Thank you, Lexi. I love you so much, girl.
I
Lots of
love
love
you
to you.
too. Thank you.
How I said this 90 minutes ago. How could you not feel the sunshine in this girl's heart? How could you not feel the energy of this woman? Look at the chat. Look at all the love. This is what the world needs. This is what has to happen. This is the change that needs to happen. And we need to embrace it because the world is in a toilet, and that's okay. We can always clean the toilet. Because everybody likes to use a clean toilet. So, my friends, please go out there and share this. Because this incredible woman at the young age of 27 is shining her light. And we need to share that light. And what I would say to you is share this with somebody who you feel is poor in spirit, somebody who's going through a difficult time, so that they can feel the energy, because it's just really just a breath of fresh air to breathe. So thank you, Lexi. And thank you, Franny. I love you too, girl. You're amazing. Another young woman who is sharing her light with all of us. So thank you, Franny. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Evil Ginger. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Sandra Meal, if you're still here with us. And of course, thank you to Puti Nation. Well, with all the talk of singing to people's heart, it is only fitting we go see a talented singer today with the ability to do just that. So we are off to see at Lauren_S2 today in Brazil. So that's where we are rating to. Super grateful for all of you. I'm confirming, my friends, the guest for next week. So I'm not going to tell you this week who the next guest on the Coffee and Biscotti show will be, but we will be here next week, same time, as they used to say, same bat channel, my friends. We will be here for another episode of the Coffee and Biscotti show, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And as always, from my heart to yours, have an awesome Friday and an even awesomer weekend. Much love to you. Josh, right away, brother. I'm out of here.